Wonderful. Hello, everybody. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Well, first, welcome and thank you. Happy to be here today on this beautiful Monday after a gorgeous weekend in Flagstaff. Let's go ahead and get started with a roll call. Commissioner Conway, that's myself, and I am here. Commissioner Parsons.
Present.
Commissioner Kerr. Not here. Commissioner Martin.
I'm here.
Commissioner Rowden.
Here.
Commissioner Stackhouse. Not here as of yet. And Commissioner Layden. Also not hearing them, so they seem to be absent as well. Moving on to the approval of the minutes from March 20th, 2023, which were provided in the packet. Thank you so much for providing those with plenty of time for us to read through them. Any corrections, anything we'd like to pull out from the meeting notes from the March 20th meeting? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Sure, I'll present a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Parsons to approve the minutes. Second? Can I second it?
You can.
I'll second. Sweet, I second it. All those approved, say aye.
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 All right. Any nayers out there? Any naysayers? Hearing none, we seem to have approved those minutes. Great job, everybody. Let's cruise on into public participation. As always, I will just read this so I don't mess anything up. This portion of the meeting is for items that are not on the agenda. The commission cannot act on items presented during the public participation of the agenda. The commission is prohibited by the open meeting law from discussing or considering the item until the item is officially placed on an agenda. We ask that comments are limited to 5 minutes. Do we have any public here to participate? I see a hand up. Hello, welcome.
I'm here as a citizen, so I'm just going to cover my logo here for work. I'm a West Side resident, and due to the connectivities provided by the neighborhoods on the west side, except for on the south side of Santa Fe, we get a lot of drive-through traffic. And Thorpe Road is particularly busy, so people come from north and south, and they go through that way. And one of the things they want to be on the front page telling people to slow down because it's really, really fast. And that's not just my perception of it. They're doing a gas line project on Thorpe, and I asked the flag people if they've noticed the traffic, and they're like, yes, this is terrifying standing up there. So we've called the police a million times, nothing happens. So I'm trying to think of a way to get people to realize they're driving through a park, because there's Thorpe Park on both sides of that road. So it occurred to me, if there was a sign over by Marshall School, a sign at Santa Fe that said you are entering a park, people might think to slow down, because there's the playground, there's so many things going on in that area that road should be slower. It should be 25, but people don't drive to them. Some people do. A lot of people drive 35, 40 miles from there. So that's my idea, is to put signs that say you're entering the park. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming to see us today, and we will discuss whether that should be, if that's something we can, as a commission, can put on an agenda for a future discussion. Anybody else for public participation? All right.
Actually, I'm sorry. I couldn't get off of mute. Hi, my name is Travis Geralman, and I'm the president for Flagstaff Youth Hockey Association.
Hi, Travis. Thanks for joining us. You go ahead and please limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes.
Sounds great. Thank you. Hi, Commission. this is my first time on here. So, you know, it recently was just come to our attention. You know, I didn't really know there was a Parks and Recs Commission, so this is great. I just wanted to kind of give you guys a little bit of feedback on Flagstaff Youth Hockey and what that means for J. Lively Activity Center. We have a great partnership with the city, and you know, we have 175 kids this past season. Within that, we had 5 travel teams and 5 club teams. So lots of competitions. All the travel teams typically have to travel most of their games to, out of Flagstaff to tournaments and to league games. And we get a select number in town, which is equitable when it comes to league games. I guess what I would ask the city is maybe to consider expansion of the J. Lively Activity Center to include potential second sheet. There's a lot of user groups. We got Flagstaff figure skating, high school hockey, adult hockey, and a lot of programming that goes into that. And ice is very limited, and there is a huge need for additional ice. And although NAU has been discussing bringing in a sheet of ice, well, proof's in the pudding, so we won't know until it happens, right? But we could absolutely use an additional sheet for development of youth hockey, and potentially, you know, as soon as we get a second sheet, we're able to host tournaments in Flagstaff and additional revenue games. I think this last year we were able to bring in 19 teams for an 8U Mite tournament, and we used every single piece of ice that was available on March 3rd and 4th, and it was a big success, and it was a good revenue for the city, and we'd like to do more of that. And that's all I had. I just wanted to kind of get my feet wet and say hi and give you a little history on Flagstaff and where we're at with the program association, and appreciate your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Travis. Appreciate you coming to see us today. Be careful with those wet feet on the ice. I hear that is dangerous.
It's slippery.
So that's good stuff. Yeah, really appreciate it. Wow, public participation here. This is great. We love hearing from the public, and tell your friends there is a Parks and Rec Commission, and this is your opportunity to come and raise awareness, give us awareness of things going on in the community. So thank you to both of our speakers today. Do we have anybody else for public participation? Okay. Yeah, again, just really want to appreciate the people coming out today. Again, we can't discuss or consider items until they are placed on an agenda, but it does give us something to consider placing on a future agenda, which I believe we would do towards the end of this meeting or through in between meetings. So really appreciate your guys' time. And Rebecca, please correct me if I've misspoke on anything.
You're good. Thanks, Ricky.
Super.
Chairperson.
That's all right. Ricky's fine. All right. If it's cool, then we're going to move on through to the Thorpe Park Annex Concept Design Refresher, please, and thank you.
All right, give me a second here to load up a presentation. We do also have Commissioner Stackhouse has arrived, and I believe Commissioner Layden arrived too virtually, just for the record on that. So let's get the presentation open. I do think after this presentation, we do have, I believe, a public comment on that, if not mistaken, just so everyone knows. And this thing is just about ready, maybe. Please bear with me here. Okay. Thorpe Park, and I'll get this thing in presentation mode. So some of this is a part of the presentation that was delivered to City Council on December 6th. So it was a request to do a recap in a way on what occurred with this entire process and how it culminated on December 6th with City Council, and just thought it'd be a good time now that we're in April to bring it back to the Parks and Recreation Commission. So we had a final concept adoption to occur on December 6th after meeting with city council twice before that. And so just for everyone's reference, what is drawn there on your screen in green, including even the blue highlight, that would be known what is Regional Park of Thorpe Park, that our citizen was just recommending, where this thing expands quite a bit when you look at how Thorpe Road curves around from Santa Fe all the way over to North Bonito. So it's a 219 acres with approximately 130 acres being more active recreation. And when we say that, what we mean are things like the tennis courts, the softball fields, the disc golf, the playground structures, the basketball courts. There's some little league fields in there, a multi-purpose field. And then there are some areas, the foots, I think, can be considered more active recreation when you see mountain biking on it, hiking, walking, running. Unfortunately, sometimes motor vehicles not prohibited, not allowed there, so definitely prohibited. We also have a recreation center as a part of this regional park. The annex parcel, and recently we've been asking everyone to drop the word annex. It's Thorpe Park. So this additional parcel within Thorpe Park, it is it's included in that active recreation calculation, since a lot of it was being suggested from the public to be more active versus passive. So that then was leading about 89 acres of more passive recreation, where we've got the Francis Short Duck Pond. We have an outdoor classroom, and then a handful of acreage that would be considered forested area. So the community outreach, it was a large engagement process that city staff went through, and it's what generated this concept. The process, it was robust, it was inclusive, it had a lot of measurable data. That we used a facilitator in third party to help us put on the entire outreach. That way it was not deriving just from city staff. So we wanted to create that transparency as well as be a partner at the table with it. This was a recap for city council at that time, because we had met on October 25th and November 15th. So from those meetings and the feedback we had received in those meetings, by all means, you can come all the way up to the screens. We were asked to create a larger area for restoration and for open spaces, for indigenous gardens, native plantings, a larger orchard. These were all the examples that were thrown out to more surround what is the Indigenous Community Cultural Center, or for short the ICCC. And in more of an enhanced ceremonial space was also requested through those meetings. Another request was to relocate the proposed pickleball courts. And so we put a note on here that they will be relocated, not to be within the boundaries of this 8.5 acres, but rather over by the current Bark Park, which is by North Thorpe Road, and then relocating the Bark Park to a quieter area over here. We were asked to adjust any parking based on the Indigenous Community and Cultural Center being more the centerpiece of this property. At the time, we were asked to keep city employee housing with more due diligence to come. And that's what's shown on there in blue. But as we went through this process that night on the 6th, as we get to this last slide, you'll see what changed for us. This was where the 6 proposed pickleball courts were to be relocated. So that's at the existing Bark Park. I also saw an opportunity to add some more parking spaces when and if that were to develop or to come, which would be along, again, North Thorpe Road. And then since November 15th, some discussions were brought forward. One of them just occurred. It's a same content that was just a part of our public participation. There were concerns from the public about increased traffic of park users entering these spaces. There were concerns about the skate park and pump track and the proximity of that to residences and to Ruby Gardens. And there were concerns about the city employee housing on parkland. That was just bringing that forward. And then this image here was just to show kind of we've got Ruby Gardens there. That's in the green triangular space. That's a lease with this between City of Flagstaff sustainability offices and Ruby Gardens. And then this was just showing that black dot was showing the edge of the proposed skate park and pump track and what that distance was to the rear yards of residences along North Cherry Road. And then also, West Cherry Road. And then also the black dot up at the edge to show that southern border edge of where this proposed park was and what that distance was to residences that live along Cherry Road. So we just wanted to show that for City Council that evening. And then there were a lot of questions on what in the world is a skate park and pump track, where we are seeing a lot of these pop up in a handful of park locations across the country, honestly. So just was trying to show some images of what these typically entail. So they're not those deep bowls, 9 to 15 foot bowls. They're more of a flowing track to keep the movement going. And I think we're seeing all ages enjoying that specific amenity. This, I'm just going to cruise through real fast. We don't need to focus very much time on it. This was discussing some of the history regarding the ordinance 425 for this area, as well as land water conservation funds. But all this became, we don't need to even go there because throughout this process, the city employee housing was removed. So I just want, since this was presented on the 6th, was going to keep it in here for our purposes this afternoon. And then just covered with City Council that night. What does an adoption concept really do for any of us? It creates the path forward with the visual ideation of that we can plan now, we can budget as this commission has done when we went through our prioritization exercise. We can start eventually then design. And then we can start to work through design review process that we have at the city for any project. And then we can start to develop as those funds come live for us. This then became what was discussed through that conversation, the concept design. So you see that it still has the note on there for the 6 pickleball courts to be relocated to where the current park is. And then I believe it was Councilmember House that came up with the language of, all right, we've got a lot of conversation here going on regarding this skate park and pump track. Could we put a note on this so we can get through the evening and have a re-examination of the skate park pump track location? Does it maybe go somewhere else when it comes time to start to actually design this project or even that amenity of this project? Because this entire thing will come in phases without a doubt. There's not all the money sitting in a magical bag or bank waiting to develop this today. So that note was added too. So this is, as it exists today, what would be considered the Thorpe Park final concept design. Whew. All right, so I'm gonna leave this image up because this is the image that I think matters for our conversation, and we can start the conversation. I see Commissioner Martin, your hand is up.
It looks really good, Amy. Great job on your presentation.
Thanks. You know, if okay, since I know that we have members of the public that are here specifically for this item, I would love to hear from our public participation, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
You want to?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for letting me speak. I'm Rose Falcon. I live up at the end of West Cherry, and Thorpe Park is literally in my backyard. Lucky me. So we've been with this whole deal since when they were going to build a new yard and vacate the old yard. So it's been a long process, and I can tell it's going to be smart. But I am here this evening to ask a couple of questions and make a couple of requests, if I might, as you're getting underway in this, down to the nitty gritty on this. The location and potential lighting of a skate park. From what we had understood from council's consensus was to move, after looking at how close the skate park is to our neighbor's backyard down on Cherry, that the skate park would be moved to the north of the, you see that little orange rectangle, that metal building? The skate park was going to be moved north of that. So it would keep the more active parts of things together and not have it so close to dear Bill Dunham's backyard. It's a big feature, and I'm glad you showed that picture, Amy, because I was not really envisioning quite what it was. I thought maybe it would be more like the one over by Coconino High School. So, but then in talking with some people, the idea of lights came up. Just so you know, there are houses all around this parcel, this 8 acres. On all of the, I mean, not to the north, but on all the other sides, there's housing. We have the very tall lights with the softball fields in our backyard that shine in my bedroom window. So I'm fully aware of what lighting can mean when it's added to an area. And I would not like to see a lit skate park. And I would really like to see that skate park moved north of that building. And that ties into my second thing. The parking there on Aztec. If you had been there yesterday walking to the pond, there were strollers, there were wheelchairs, there were walkers, there were bicyclists, and there were cars trying to go both ways getting up to the pond. I think a lot of people are going to see the water spilling over right now. But it was crazy yesterday afternoon, and I just thought, wow, if you added even 22 parking places there, that is going to be a mess. And we already have, can I just point out one thing, and this, if I might, there was additional parking put in the last few years right over here.
Correct, yes.
All of that, I think it's 40 some places or 50, I counted the other day, but it really is mostly empty most of the time. I think it would accommodate anybody who wants to come and use the dog park or the skate park or the Indigenous Center or whatever else that happens to be in there. Aztec was not built for much two-way traffic, much less accommodating all the pedestrian and other recreational traffic that's already there and it will already be coming when this parcel starts to get developed. So I would really encourage us to put that skate park, stick with what council says, stick that skate park north of that metal building. I'd love to see the metal building go, but if it becomes an indoor basketball court, that might be a nice thing if it has to stay. I would like to see it go because it really blocks the view shed, looking at the pond and the peaks. So the parking now, the other thing, if I can come forward again, that we talked about that is going to be major is the Rio de Flag Flood Control Project. And some people, I think, in town may not be aware of that project, but it's about to get underway in earnest. And it will be the biggest public works project Flagstaff has seen in 100 years. And it is definitely going, the foots, the ponds there, the Rio runs right through there. There, you see the potential foots realignment, that's to raise it up out of it's flooded right now, you can't go through there. But that is only a very small part of what's going to happen with the Rio. They're going to put it in a tube, they're going to put 8-foot flood walls along Coconino Estates coming into the pond, and they're going to have a little composite channel, but basically they're going to rip through the whole Rio all the way from Coconino Estates down to past the tracks and everything and realign it. So it's $122 million, Corps of Engineers. I think that anything that happens on that 8-acre parcel has to be coordinated with what's going to happen on the timeline with the Rio. And it has been a moving target since the get-go, but it's coming. They're saying their final EA said data was coming starting this spring for Rio. And that's going to include replacing bridges upstream. And let's hope to goodness they're not talking about replacing that beautiful mosaic bridge. And we made our comments to the Corps of Engineers with that. That would just be a disaster, I think. But anyway, the Rio project, skate park location. Here's my final request, i.e. recommendation. We have been following this and this Friends Support Group that we have tried to stay active in this. But what I really hope that you all could do and consider, have a field meeting with us, or at least on site, maybe in June or July, if you can swing it, or whenever you can, go over and look at this parcel and see what we're talking about trying to put in this parcel. It's 8 acres. It's even less than 8 acres if you include the floodplain. It can't be all things to all people. We're not saying nothing active, but we're saying please recognize the neighborhood, the buffer that's needed between activities that might take place there in a very small area. It's pretty popular already, and we kind of like it just kind of funky and small and quiet and not all lit up, and definitely not a lot of traffic going to and from on Aztec. It's not a through road. You know, and it's not, it has no sidewalks, it has nothing. People are out in the middle of the street using that road as access to Northern Pond. You know, people are fishing and on and on. So I'm sorry to be a little long-winded, but obviously I've been immersed in this thing for a while. So I know Duffy also has things she wants to say, so I'll sit down and be quiet. So thank you very much.
I'll just follow where I was going to give my name before Duffy Westheimer, and I'm a 34-year resident of that area. So I'm really familiar with it. I walk a lot. And what I would like to say is not only Aztec is busy, but Mogollon. And the only way, these maps don't show, the big map showed it, but the only way to that parcel is past homes on the way in and the way out. And when I went to those public meetings, I would talk to people on the way, and I would ask them if they thought about the neighborhood, and no, they never thought about the neighborhood because they're like focused on their mission to go to those public meetings. And I feel like what was presented, the neighborhood was ignored. That's my personal opinion. Rose and I both spent over an hour with the consultants, and I don't think the neighborhood was taken into consideration. But anyway, in terms of the skate park, I have been in my garden on West Aspen and had heard when they were doing the bicycle, stationary bikes, pumping, spin, the spin box. They were up in that parking lot that Rose brought up, and I could hear it loud in my garden. So the sound really travels, and kids will bring their music to that skate park, and I don't want to hear it. We already hear the high school, we hear the park, and we hear everything. And so I've given a lot of thought to where that skate park could go. And I think a better location for many reasons would be up on the corner of Thorpe Road. The park has established like I think you have your compost done there and you store large things there. That's been in the past 5 years, maybe. I don't know, times of work with it. But I think that location would be a much better place for the skate park than next to the neighborhood, because I get the impression that the students that live in Lonnie or aren't living at home would like to use that skate park, and that's awesome. But why make them walk all the way to where, you know, to take their time to go all the way there when there is a place right there and there are people monitoring behavior there. Clark's Homes is there. The access is right off of Thorpe Road. So it's actually much better than through the neighborhood. And so I can't say on that map where it is because it's off the map, but there's the curve on Thorpe Road and the Kinlani Road, which is the Idaho Road. The dirt road goes off, and then there's that parks facility right on the left. And then parks people would be there to monitor behaviors, because it's not our job as neighborhood residents to monitor behavior. Please don't listen to us anyway. So I think that would be a much better location for that kind of active use, and more of the people who want to use it are up on that end of Thorpe Park anyway. So it would just make sense to me to be that location. So for noise, lights, access, who's probably going to use it a lot, take it to that other location. Bring the composting near these gardens. So that's what I'm going to add. Thank you.
One more thing. You said something about priorities already being set within the budget process. Is there a way for us to find out what those priorities are for this commission? And then to final note, we really want to be kept informed in the process as much as possible. So, thanks.
Absolutely, and I can take that question. So the Parks and Recreation Commission went through a prioritization exercise last fall, maybe even late summer into the fall, where we provided a list of 27, I think, potential projects, of which we currently have no funding for, so unfunded projects. One of them includes further mitigation of these 8.5 acres, because we know the current state, we have the sustainability offices there. Then we have the historic building that remains, that becomes the Indigenous Community Cultural Center. And then we have a large portion being used as a temporary construction yard right now. So it's for the further mitigation to continue this process. So it's not significant funding whatsoever as far as development's concerned. What I could see it being used for is to have that perimeter fence taken down, start to open up the property to what it is, to the park. And any enhancements that would need to be made with how it's left today after the buildings were demolished a couple years ago. And then other than that, it was not a high priority for this existing commission, so it didn't rank very high for further development. But it is out in, say, 10 years from now, to start to use funds to start to develop it in phases. So it's still a ways out.
When you mentioned mitigation, one thing I'd also like to say that I just learned is the Corps is saying they may use the Benito Garden site there at Elm and Benito for staging area for construction, which would mean if the Benito Garden, which has been years under cultivation, wonderful growing area, if it had to be moved, it could, the most ideal place that hasn't been maybe contaminated like the north end of that is exactly where the skate park, where it's shown now. That's a flat, sunny area right next to where the earth is already cultivating. If the Benito Garden had to move, and I'm guessing those people are going to want to know what's going to happen to their garden, and that would be a great to enlarge garden. So another argument, I think, for moving the skate parks. Now I really will be quiet. Thank you.
Any comments from any of our commissioners?
Hey, Amy, you have I think a public comment online.
Okay.
Hi, this is Travis Drallman, and it's hard being online as I look at this and hear the comments. And what I guess I would like to just also touch on is that Aztec Road. The city, I hope, would have a plan to upgrade that and make it better, because it is a narrow road and it could use sidewalks. And if we're bringing foot traffic like this to that area, it needs something. And then there is a lot of parking spots by the softball fields that could be used for, that are not regularly used except for athletics. But I think we're kind of, in my opinion, if I'm not incorrect, is, this whole parcel was approved by the voters to create it into this Parks and Recs, and everybody I talked to, they wanted more athletics, right? I mean, youth sports in Flagstaff they need space. We don't need more community gardens, and it just seems like, per the voters and the people that I talked to, this have been developed more for public, athletic space and turf fields and all that kind of stuff that goes into there, versus creating so much dead space. I don't know, but that's all I have.
Go ahead, Commissioner Martin.
I just wanted to say thank you. This is Commissioner Martin saying thank you to the public participation. We do listen to everyone. I did like the idea of maybe we should be considering some changes maybe to Cherry Road as we develop this park. I like the idea that there should I know we have a path, a 10-foot path that is going around the perimeter of the park, but maybe a sidewalk or some type of path put onto the side of that Aztec. It's not Cherry, it's Aztec Road. Along Aztec Road, there being sidewalks where people can safely walk across the park or along the park. And maybe something we can consider to Aztec Road to maybe help with, I know there was concerns with the speed and the traffic and people speeding in there is maybe we could think about adding some speed bumps or something to help like force people to slow down in that area. And I think that if we, with the, especially with the added parking spots, you know, that would make it a little bit safer for families getting in and out of their car versus off on the side of the road or in the dirt. But I like how it looks currently. I think it looks really good though.
Good.
So what is the process from here on out in regards to the actual plan? And is the plan still able to be, you know, have some evolution to it and things kind of mix up and take into consideration some of these comments from the table?
I think so, and I think that was the biggest movement was with Councilmember House that evening was, okay, let's put a note on this to re-examine the skate park pump track location at a later date. Since this does deliver in phases, this is just a concept design, and that's what it is. It's giving, you know, if none of us are here 10 years from now, it's giving other individuals that path forward and to continue this process. And again, you know, the funding that exists between if today was day 0 and 10 years from now, it's minimal that what we have to just kind of clean up the site, if you will.
Yeah.
So I think there's plenty of time to still discuss this. I think what we don't want to do is get into a brand new outreach in a brand new conceptual phase, but what minor tweaks can occur to this as time goes on, because who knows what changes in our world.
I can see that. I mean, you've already got the community garden kind of south, so you could kind of relocate that or make that bigger. Because you've also got the pollinator garden. And I don't know as far as the parking there at the softball fields up on Aztec. Is that where Aztec dies right there or?
It does, yes.
So, I mean, considering if you could modify that parking area, you create more stalls, create more direct link in, so you shorten Aztec to a certain degree, you could expand that skate park up into that area and eliminate the
Possible. So Aztec does, it drives up, you would go west into this parking lot that has approximately 50 spaces. There is an access point where there is the dam over to FUSD.
Yeah.
But then it's not considered a public road at that point.
Right.
So we still need to enable that access for FUSD maintenance to their.
No, I'm just thinking, if you jogged it to the west, immediately you got to the north side of the dog park there.
As far as the road itself. It may. Go ahead, Commissioner Stackhouse.
So just want Brian to go or do you want?
Commissioner Martin, we're gonna have Commissioner Stackhouse go first and then we'll go to you if that's okay.
That's okay.
So just for these latest application, then if there were minor tweaks to this, would they be going through council at this point? Because is it kind of past us? Or is it still in a phase where we would still have some creative control over minor tweaks?
So this is an approved concept design with council.
Okay.
So if there were minor tweaks, I don't anticipate taking it back to council, seeking their approval. I would hope that that's something we could do at a more advisory level, staff level, community level. Unless there's got to be, I'm sure there's some threshold though of a modification on when it triggers, this needs to go to city council.
So is moving that skate park to a different location, is that a minor tweak or is that a major tweak?
I personally, in seeing the statement of a re-examination of that, tells me it'll be re-examined before developed. Right? Like as far as the location of it. I'm not aware, just for all commissioners and for the record, of any lighting occurring at all on this property, other than pedestrian lighting.
Yeah.
They had asked me that, and I just said.
Yeah, not aware of any lighting, and specifically not lighting at the skate park pump track. There would be, I'm sure, interior lighting for indoor basketball naturally. And I'm sure building lighting and pedestrian lighting when you have both 15, 10-foot and 5-foot paths for safety, but not sport lighting.
How about lighting on that parking?
Good question. We don't have a lot of parking lot lighting in our parking lots, so I don't see that being the case.
Can I add to that, please? This is Rebecca. I was thinking in thinking about what goes to council. We will have some, once we actually go into starting to design, we'll need to hire some contractors or design consultants, and if the council limits, you know, depending on how much that design will cost, council may need to approve that contract. And at that point, it would be in front of council, and I can imagine some of these conversations occurring. We'll need to, because that'll be years down the road, so we'll need to refresh council on the whole process, and that this was the concept that council approved, those kinds of things. So I can imagine it possibly coming up for discussion at that point in time.
But that's a huge.
That's yeah, we don't have the funding for that anytime soon. But we will need a professional design before we start any construction of these elements. And then of course, in working with the commission on their priorities, and knowing that this is going to be developed in phases, and knowing that we already have a third party, actually several third-party partners interested in bringing grant funds to the table for the Indigenous Community Cultural Center. I think that's probably going to be the first piece of this to start development. And the things that will need to accompany that for that to be a successful endeavor. So I'm really thinking some of these more active amenities are going to be some of the later phases. That's just what I'm thinking as I try to think it through. One thing that might happen sooner than that, or around the same time as that, is the moving of the dog park. If we need the space where the dog park currently is for those pickleball courts to go in. But again, not having funding for any of that right now, it's just all very much up in the air.
Sorry, one more micro comment. Is there any other discussion about egress out of this as to take maybe some pressure off of Aztec? Because that, is that Benito right there that?
So Benito would be over here next to just east of the traditional ceremonial space.
So, I mean, just in order to take a little bit of pressure off the neighborhood, maybe an egress out of that onto Benito might take some of the pressure off of Aztec and put more on a much more robust thoroughfare like Benito.
There will be the conflicts with the Rio de Flag. And then the topography increases quite a bit going up to this property from Benito.
Yeah.
It's pretty steep. I bet there's a 12-foot difference there. If not more.
Understand.
Yeah. You know, and then, you know, with the Foots Trail realignment with the Rio de Flag project going in, that is multimodal. So that does bring that up and out of a drainage space, becomes more usable. I mean, it's April 17th and that's been closed and full of water since early mid-December. So it certainly makes that egress possible. But yeah, and then you have Dale Avenue right here, and then you've got Mogollon entering the property, and then a potential egress off Aztec. Commissioner Martin.
Commissioner
I
Martin?
believe.
No, that's what I was saying too.
Hello. From what it looks like, Amy, I'm looking at the Google map alongside of it. It looks like Rose Garden is being preserved in this concept design, correct?
What garden was that, Commissioner?
It was like Rose Garden. It was the garden that was like that's been like licensed out by the city.
Ruby Garden. Yes.
Yeah,
Ruby,
that one right there. That's preserved, isn't it, in this design?
yes, they have a leased space there. So these golden rectangles that are a 10-foot path, that is what kind of frameworked this property, where Ruby Gardens is down below that. So there,
Okay.
it's this tree line right here that you might vaguely be able to
Yeah.
see. Run the cursor, that would be the like northwestern edge of Ruby Gardens today.
Okay, so it looks like, to me, there is quite a big gap that's potential between the actual pump track and homes, between that with the garden that's being leased out that has a lease, and then the added tree line. So it's not like it's right up against the property, homeowner's property. Is that correct?
It is not right at the homeowner's property. It's estimated
About
to be,
100 feet, 150 feet.
yes, to the rear of a homeowner's yard.
Okay, and then I think Rebecca said that there is no planned lighting at this time for the pump track to be lit.
There is no planned lighting. That is correct.
Okay, and I assume like most of our parks closes at 9 or 10ish, unless there's a special event.
Correct. Yes, I believe it's usually 10 p.m. when it's Sunday through Thursday night, and midnight on Friday, Saturday nights in city code currently today.
Okay, so while we couldn't say definitively how much noise these pump tracks could be, it sounds like, to me at least, it would be pretty much minimal with between the homes and the gap between the homes. You know, there are those gardens that are being preserved. No one's being forced out of that area. So I personally don't see too much of an issue for where they lie, especially with the concept design for them. It sounds like they would sound very similar to maybe a car driving, if that, if they were fully being used. It doesn't seem like, at least to me, that the sound would be too much of an issue. And with little lighting that there is going to be, and when the park's already closed in general, I don't see there maybe being too much of a conflict there with concerns of like it being a noise or a lighting issue. I think you guys have a really good design in that aspect. And so that was my comment on it. I do agree with Rebecca. I think if I was to choose something in this concept design that is being a priority and keeping in mind from our other projects that we have going on, I would say the relocation of Thorpe Park would be a priority, getting it out of an ice pack and a natural accumulation of an ice area, and taking care of the pickleball courts, at least, would be for me a priority. If we did have the funds, that would be the first thing I would want to see developed. And I have no other comment. Thank you.
Any other commissioners with comments?
One comment I would offer is, when locating the skate park on track, and looking at what issues we run into over at Bushmaster Park with that skate, amount of graffiti on that, security wise, is kind of a key in my mind, thinking about where to place that, so it has a set of eyes on it any time of day. To maybe dissuade some of that mischievous action that occurs over in Bushmaster.
And to separate it from potential intermingling with residential areas. When I spoke with these ladies, I guess, I don't know, I have a client who used to run the the concessions up at Thorpe Park and the amount of, we put something that close to the Kiwani School and some of the other places. I think a lot of times we underestimate how often things happen, after hours that we say the park closes at 9, but I can imagine that's maybe an issue in some places. So separating that from the residential areas, I didn't see what couldn't be accomplished by just reversing some of the passive areas to the north with some of the active areas in the south. I completely echo the sentiment of the security issue, from getting it away from residential areas and putting it in a place where it's less likely.
So if I could dive into that a little bit, because I heard two different things. I just want to make sure I understand the Commissioner's comments. Was your comment, Commissioner Parsons, suggesting leaving the state park where it is on the concept? Okay. Can you restate that for me? So I understand?
And no matter where we put it, I think the ultimate, one of the considerations of where it gets located is where it's going to get the most amount of use and provide the most set of eyes on it for a security standpoint. So if that's closer to a road, like road or somewhere else where there's more activity, we're being tucked back into a more of a residential area, then I would support that over its current location. Because as you know, Bushmaster Parks, their skate park is kind of set back in there. There's always some graffiti and everything else.
Yeah, if I could just, so we did have professionals helping us with this concept, including our developing professionals, landscape architects. And one of the reasons, I just want to make sure, I'm not advocating, I'm just providing information. One of the reasons that the skate park ended up where it is so that it would have the most, so that it's not tucked behind a building or kind of off away like we have at Bushmaster. It was intended to be more out in the open, not the deep holes, so that there's more eyes on it. That's kind of why it would ended up at this location versus further back in the park where it's more isolated. So that was considered. We did not consider, outside of this annex property, since what we were trying to program was just this 8 acres.
Commissioner Martin, your hand's up if you wish to speak.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little confused as to why, out of everything that we have possibly developing here between empty parking lots and open areas and areas of like open space, why a skate park / pump track design, why does a certain part of the park has any more reason to have any more incidents of crime than any other area of this design? I'm a little bit skeptical that the idea that where the concept designs that we have been seeing of a pump track, why that would attract any more crime than anywhere else between an open space behind a building or an open parking lot that doesn't have lighting. I'm a little confused why this pump track is indicative of crime versus anything else in this park.
But I would think, can I throw my opinion in there? I guess my concern would be the youth aspect of it. You're putting youth butting right back up against residential. From just the standpoint of let me put my house next to that pump track. Let me have my kids be out there with a pump track and I'm right across the street or across that little dirt area. I guess if it were my house, I'd be picking that pretty green thing up at the top that's butting against, I believe that's a drainage at the very top of this. Am I right? Is that rear flag up there? So if it's my house, I would much rather look at a green thing with trees than a pump track, I guess is the way I would look at it. And so maybe just taking the security and all the other stuff out of it, just considering the neighborhood and the neighbors, I guess that would be the way I would look at it.
I mean, I can understand maybe the sightliness of asphalt, but I still don't understand why a skate park and pump track requires more security than anything else in the park.
Again, let's maybe subtract the security from the discussion and just think about a view shed. Ryan, I guess Commissioner Martin, what considering what would you want to look at out your windows? A park or a pump track?
Well, I can't really say for sure how the pump track is meant to look, but I do know we have proposed about 100 feet of distance between a pump track and between nearby homes, 100+ feet, and additional, we have, it looks from the design that there is current vegetation that is planned there as well. It's not like it's an open parking lot.
I think because we're not deciding anything today, I don't know that we absolutely need to suffer Commissioner Martin and my disagreement right now. But I think this if you don't want to, but I see these ladies' point of view.
I think the biggest thing is to acknowledge that there is the re-examine the location of that specific amenity. And that is the one amenity called out on this concept design to be re-examined, which is obviously the reason why we're having such an important conversation right now. But again, and then I think the other caveat is to keep in mind that there are no funds to develop this anytime soon. So it will need to be re-examined at a later date, without a doubt.
Real quick on that point. So in the meantime, it just sits as it looks now. That whole area just exists as it currently exists. So there's nothing that's going to change about it, likely unless it's a dog park movement. But that area with I haven't been over there in a while. I don't know if those buildings are still up there and all the stuff out there, but it's just going to look the same, right?
That area looks as it does today. We have minor funds to do cleanup work when the area is no longer used as a temporary construction yard. And then if any grant funding surfaces for the Indigenous Community Cultural Center to start to rehab that building.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I've been just listening to everybody's comments. I think learning lessons from Wheeler Park and the activities and the neighborhood response to things that have happened in Wheeler Park over the years, and I think that this concept really addresses a lot of those. It's not an event park, it's not a sports field. It's it's meant to be a more passive drop-in area. I understand. I did not see the traffic on Aztec and the people utilizing. I know we've all been sheltered in our homes since November. We've got a couple 65-degree days, and everybody gets outside, and we're all very excited. And so I understand that does bring an increase of traffic. But like I think it's been discussed, is that this is a concept drawing, concept design that has been approved, and that there is still more work to come, including the funding of the project, and that stuff changes. I really like this. I like the start. I like the design. I do think a big discussion on that pump track. I will tell you, the one at Fort Tudhill is loved and used well. I will say it has brought certain challenges. Say younger individuals who come speeding through and are now doing donuts in the parking lot and are just kind of the exuberance of youth. People are excited, and that happens sometimes. But you got to think of, an injury happens. I like that it's by the road in case an injury happens, and you have quick ambulance response and access. So I do think there's benefits to it, but I do think it should be re-examined, as was already discussed. But those are my 2 cents. Does anybody else have any further comments? I do think we should probably move on from this, and I do appreciate all the conversation, but I do think it might be time to move on to the next items, unless there are final comments.
I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Right.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was awesome. Great discussion, everybody, and I would love the presentation.
We have our next presentation on, we have a snow season recap. So let me get that presentation ready. Please hold. You get to hear a lot from me tonight. I hope you're okay with that.
I'll just remind commissioners that this topic came from discussion at our last meeting and a few questions that came towards the end for 2 from. This is not intended to cause any post-traumatic stress. Recovering from this recent winter, including our own parks manager here, Gina. So yeah, maybe take it away.
So there's a snow operations kind of recap, if you will, of 2022 into 2023. So we had our 5th largest snow season on record as far as snowfall totals were concerned. So I wanted to kind of cover a handful of projects or topics. What does the pros team actually, what does our operation actually include? I think that this is a good educational piece on that. We discussed briefly, like, what are those resources and what are the impacts? Those go hand in hand with me. I wanted to cover what is the Park Snow app. It's a pretty impressive tool that we have. Some data from this last 5th largest snow season and kind of what's next. What do we think we can do in the future? That's a lovely image of, I think that was a February 2019 36-inch storm. That's Heritage Square right there in the image for everybody for your reference. Okay, the operations. So it's a 24/7 type operation for us. We do 12-hour shifts when applicable. We do some of our shifts that we differ from our partners in streets and public works, where we typically have a 4 a.m. start time for our equipment operators, a 6 a.m. start time for our handwork and hand shovelers, and depending on what that accumulation looks like, we sometimes have a 9 a.m. start time. We also have a 2 a.m. start time when we do a hauling out of the downtown and Heritage Square areas. And we'll dive a little bit more into that hauling because that became quite an obstacle for us in general with the snow season that we had. We have priorities and we have them in order. We have well over 300 assignments that are our responsibility. We've got parking lots of our city-owned buildings. That is 63 parking lots. We have city-owned sidewalks and the foot system, meaning the concrete and asphalt sections, which totals about 24 miles in length. We have Heritage Square, so downtown, with the bricked-in pavered area. We have our dedicated city alleys. Those are in downtown. They're in Town Site, and there are 3 of them in the Sunnyside neighborhood. We have our courtesy berm relocation service. And again, that's when that kicks in, depending on accumulation. We have the entrances to the urban trail system, non-aggregate only. So those are those concrete approaches, sometimes approaching the aggregate trails. We have then our parking lots in our city park locations that we were just having a healthy conversation about. Then we have, stairways, walkways, sometimes the skate tracks or the BMX track within city parks to manage. Those become the lowest priority for us. Those are in order. Fleet and equipment, that becomes a big piece of this. So we have approximately 10 plows on 10 of our trucks. We do have 1 tool cat. That's an impressive piece of machinery. I have an image of it coming up later. We do have one truck that has a cinder spreader on it, so spreads the black cinders in our city parking lots for us. We do have approximately 6 tractors and backhoes, so different types of equipment. There's an image of one of our tractors in Heritage Square with what's called a Gannon on the back. And then we have 4 snow throwers, and then we have many snow shovelers, many shovels. We have, I think we go through about 100 shovels per season, if not mistaken, is our usual amount that ends up breaking on us. Resources and impacts. This is a big one. So, you know, resources to us are obviously staffing, equipment, and any other tools. And when I mean tools, we'll talk about the snow app as a tool, not hand tools necessarily. So, you know, this past season, as a recap for the majority of the season, park staff, we were down 40% on our staff. It hurt big time. And that's why we're talking about some PTSD for Gino over here on my right. That hurt. You know, then we've got a variety of equipment types. There's going to be certain types that work well in certain environments, depending on that accumulation. If it was a colder storm, like the Martin Luther King weekend versus a warmer storm that we had on March 1st, I think, or March 2nd. So that depends on what equipment we use where. Then we have our snow app as a tool, and we'll dive into that and how we use that. That's an image of an alley downtown, had just been plowed with, who knows how many inches were down at that time, but it shows what that plowing operation resembles, where there's you cannot plow edge to edge when you put buildings up against and other obstacles, when you have bollards, you have gas meters, you name it, electrical boxes. That's what it looks like when it's just been plowed. So those were our resources this season, so that was tough. Then the impacts are, you know, what are those assignments, those over 300 assignments prioritized? And then another impact is accumulation. You know, some of those, so when we talk about assignments and those impacts, our courtesy berm relocation program doubled in size this season, doubled. Where at the end of last season, we had, I believe, 84 residences and we're well over 160. So doubled on us. That was a difficult thing to accomplish. And then the higher accumulations, they created snow storage impacts for us. We all dealt with it, or however you dealt with snow this year, you encountered a snow storage impact at some point, somewhere. That happened for us everywhere. So that was also a very difficult resource versus impact result. And then the heavier snow, it breaks our equipment. It does big time, and it just becomes difficult to move at some point. So those were a lot of the resources and impacts. This is our park snow app. It's internal for city staff. If everyone is, let me briefly explain it. And then I'm happy to go into the link if you all want to see it live. It's amazing, an amazing tool. We have all of our assignments loaded in here. I can see live data at any single point in time. So can Gino, so can Tyrone with our recreation centers. So can anyone, and we share it with our public works team, where we can tell by the second when one of these assignments has been completed. So the operator shows up, they show up at whatever assignment, click start, do the action, click finish when they're done, and it updates us live and tells us exactly when it's happening. So really amazing, especially when there needs to be go backs. That happens often. Maybe someone else dumps snow in your parking lot. Now we have to go back and service it again, or on that foot trail or on that sidewalk. So it really helps us to monitor this. And then including that courtesy berm relocation program with 160 plus addresses on here, we can tell exactly when it has occurred, where we receive a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails from residents that are signed up on that program. That's what it looks like for us in-house when we're during a snow event and watching this thing. We also have an opportunity to decline an assignment, especially with an alley. You could be cruising down an alley at 4 a.m. and there's a car parked in the alley, can't plow it. So we need that operator to decline that or pause that and state why. Our operators can take photos of everything and it uploads it into it so we can see why they've declined or paused or not been able to hit a certain assignment. That also helps us too when we're trying to respond to any snow event in a certain capacity. And then, you know, and then it's, in a way, it's a fun reward tool for all of our coworkers that are out there. At the end of that shift, you look at this and you go, wow, look what we got done. Like, this is pretty cool kind of thing. So we do have a lot of fun with that too. If you want, we can go to that link, but I mean, it's all I'll be able to do is zoom in on those two screens on the left and the right regarding our assignments. It's kind of a geeky GIS tool, so we can always go to it if you'd like. Some of the data, this was pretty wild. So we had a little over 163 inches of snow this season. So we have what's called a shift change hour. So that is when, that's that 4 a.m. or that 6 a.m., 9 a.m. or 2 a.m. start time. We're physically changing our coworkers' shift. Their normal shift does not begin at that time. So it's called a shift change for us in parks. We had almost 2,500 shift change hours this year. And that's just when we change it at the beginning of that snowstorm. And then the individual works those hours throughout the snowstorm. Then there were well over another 3,500 of more hours spent just relocating the snow beyond just those shift change hours. So the cost per labor hour is estimated to be just under 175,000 this year on labor. There were equipment costs on this, easily of 150,000. You're talking fuel, usage, those hours on that equipment, and any wear and tear that occurs on our equipment. There were damages. We're not going to be shy. There were damages without a doubt. I don't know if we have a single truck right now without a giant dent in it from this snow season, because just like anyone else, you're going to slide into something when you're trying to perform this operation. So those damages are estimated to be 250,000. Some of them are cosmetic, some of them are not. So, you know, we're going to take our time and slowly fix these things within budget. Then there's the unknowns. That's a handful of us there shoveling out and a pedestrian walkway, if you will. It's not really an alley, just off Heritage Square behind the Babbitt building. The unknowns are the private damages of what did we cause when I know there was a fence that we hit in one location, someone's private fence, that happens. So it's some private damages. There's this post snow melt flooding that's occurring right now. So some potential damages in our park grounds that Gino and his coworkers have been working on the last couple of weeks. We had equipment loss, that happens. Complete trucks can go down, plows broke on us. Then we lose other project time. So there's other project loss because we're doing the snow operation and not able to focus on our other projects. And then the other unknown is staffing. Knocking on wood, a tap on wood, we're fully staffed right now, but we were not this snow season. You know, and we probably will see those estimated labor hours, the overall cost of those increase as wages increase in our community here. So like, what's next for us? You know, we're reviewing equipment. We're also reviewing what equipment we're using where. We do have another toolcat along the way. That's an image right here of what is a toolcat. A little bit more of a versatile machine than a typical skid steer from Bobcat as the manufacturer. You know, we're looking at what else might work. What else do we need to be reviewing for these bigger snow events that may occur? We're also reviewing our assignments in partnership with Public Works. Are we all doing the right thing? Are we with our priorities and our assignments, and how can we work together and figure that out? We're also finding best practices and discussions with other mountain communities. And what are they doing and what equipment do they have and how do they prioritize their assignments? And then snow storage, you know, we need to take a look at what can be adjusted. It's certainly a comment that I know I personally have with our design review process for any private or even city development on where's the snow gonna go kind of thing. You can only push it so far as well as lift it so far and so high. And you know, that was one of our lessons learned with this snow season in March. We decided to use a toolcat for courtesy berm relocation program. Got it done quicker. It was easier to maneuver than a truck with a plow on it. And we were like, all right, we're thinking about this. So we're taking what we've learned and figuring out our own best practices while we're doing this. And I think you can expect that to continue as we continue to see these more violent storms or different types of storms. That's all I had on that. We have a question from a member of the public.
Well, I just wanted to share that our neighborhood was affected big time this year. Ultimately, you put a big lit sign at the end of Aspen Avenue to direct people to 900 to that parking lot, but it was crazy. It was so unbelievably crazy because we had berms next to us coming out 5 feet from the sidewalks. And then we had people parking in every direction. And then we had people with their children on sleds and saucers going down the middle of the street with cars trying to go. It was insane. They were trying to get across Thorpe Road because we have no crosswalks on Thorpe Road except for over by Clark Homes. We need crosswalks there too. It was insane. So now it's going to take a generation or two people coming and getting free snow play where they don't have to pay at Thorpe Park. I mean, at Fort Tyndall. So we're going to have a lot of this, and there's not enough parking. So that means it comes in front of our houses and impacts our driveways and our access to our homes. And so we're really not complainers. We put up with a lot in our neighborhood, a lot. And so we're actually a source of information for you. Instead of thinking of us as enemies, we're not. We know a lot. A lot of us have lived there a very long time. So that's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Perhaps we can give shovels to the people who are. All I want to say, and I'm really happy to see this on the agenda, thank you for all you guys did. I mean, the crew, not just guys, but the toolkit. It's awesome. I mean, we didn't even have everybody, just was amazing. So thank you.
It was. Thank you. I think everyone on the team appreciates that. It was an amazing effort. It was very difficult. We were talking earlier, and I see that Commissioner Martin has his hand raised. Yeah, and we're seeing some different experiences. That it was a colder storm with the storm over Martin Luther King weekend, which meant the snow stayed around longer than normal. Then we started to get additional snowstorms on top, and it just kept compiling on top for everyone, which made it even more difficult to relocate this snow and get it to another spot. I mean, there still are snow berms out there in people's yards on north and east facing locations. So it was a very difficult season without a doubt. So it was an appropriate question that came up to discuss what those resources resemble and what the impacts are on the team. Commissioner Martin, what did you have?
I just wanted to say great job on the presentation and all your guys' hard work. I mean, like you said, it's been a crazy snow season, and I'm glad it's coming to a close. And make sure your team knows the commission is thankful for all their hard work and for putting all that work in. And I just wanted to comment on that, and thanks for putting that together. It was great.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Stackhouse?
Yeah, what were the price differences? That was the only thing I saw in here that I was, what's a normal year as opposed to like what was last year in estimated labor.
Like as far as those hours, I certainly haven't had that high of damages by any means in previous seasons. Right. So that would probably be more around that $25,000 mark, honestly, in a typical season, and not as significant of a damage to any of the vehicles or equipment. I would guess that even say those 5,000 hours estimated for this snow season, I bet in a typical snow season, we're at 2,500 total would be my guess. So cut in half.
The labor shortage affected which aspect of this the most?
I would say it affects the most our handwork. So there's only, when there's only so many pieces of equipment, there's only so many drivers that can operate it. So it's more of those other pieces. We have a great idea of how to send individuals out and scatter. It's City Hall, libraries, those civic spaces, Heritage Square, and then it's our recreation centers, to get those things cleared, let's get them open so that the public can enter safely. That's where it hurt and I think stung quite a bit. And then honestly, I think it was the go backs on certain things. Alleys are incredibly difficult to plow. And then as there's snow melt or even snow coming off roofs, going kerplat right in the middle of an alley, including downtown, that hurt. You're going back and you're doing it over
There was a
again.
couple storms that duration was like
Consistent.
forever. It felt like you shoveled and then you went out and had to shovel the exact same.
Yep, and that is where this comes in handy, this snow app. So yeah, there's even throughout a day in a shift, Gino and his team would have to even hit the reset button and be like, all right, we're going right back out and doing the exact same thing that you just did based on those priority areas.
Is there a reason the public doesn't have like just access or just could see what you were, what's been cleared, what hasn't?
You know, I think that's a very valid question. We just haven't gone there yet as a city. This is our 4th season, I think, with the app, and it was self-created with our GIS team and Gino. It's not perfect by any means, but it's still an excellent tool.
Information is
Right.
a very cool thing during these sorts of events. And I can tell you that that would be something would be, I don't know, it would probably invent more problems than it's worth. But at the same time, that's a very cool thing.
It is, it's amazing, agree, because information can help sometimes ease and calm any anxiety or issues. I think that the volume of phone calls that pros receives is typically going to be off the courtesy burn removal program. Not necessarily on these other assignments or on the urban trail. Those will be the majority of the phone calls that we receive throughout any snow event.
Making that layer, that GIS
Right.
available. Like you said, I didn't think it would decrease the phone calls. I thought it would increase. That I just would love to be able to be nosy and see.
You can come for a ride along anytime.
I don't know that 4 a.m. was a very different time.
It's actually really nice out there. And that's why.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think great questions, and that could be the future of the city of Flagstaff at some point in time, I hope, is to be able to share this type of information. Anything else?
Nothing for me, except again, just echoing the great job. I know it's a crazy season and hopefully it's the exception and not the rule from now on. And you guys really, you kick some butt. Great job. And to the public participation, I do want to say, we love having you guys here. Please tell people we want to engage more with the public. I just don't feel like you make sure you're welcome, and we really appreciate and love to get that feedback from people who are in the neighborhoods. Snow play is a big issue in Flagstaff. There's a winter advisory group. There's people that talk about snow play. I work at Fort Tuthill, so that's always a topic. So, we need to hear about what's going on in those neighborhoods, because then we can maybe help affect some sort of change. Is our hope. That's what we're here for. So thank you again for being here and providing your input and your experiences. Real quick call for any other commissioners on the snow season recap and impacts. Okay. And I don't know if Councilmember Deborah Harris is with us today. Unless I'm mistaken on that, I don't see her in the meeting or in the room. So I don't know if she provided any updates to the pros team. No? Okay. Well then, moving into those reports that were provided to us. Love the design and the pictures and the stats. This is awesome. I want to invite my commissioners to, if there's any questions, anything to pull out from those reports that were provided about what the pros team has been up to, and all those wonderful stats and details. Anybody have anything they want to discuss related to those?
So you had a couple of meetings.
We did, yeah, tapped on wood. We are fully staffed right now in parks. We will have one future vacancy as there's one individual that will promote. But, yeah. We're not 40% down any longer.
I'm selfishly really excited about the Friends and County partnership on Constance in the Park again. I think that's going to be great, and looking forward to wonderful things to come. So yeah, is there anybody else that wants to speak on anything from the report? Cool. Moving into informational items to and from commissioners and staff. Staff, do you have anything for the commissioners?
What did I have? Remind me, Rebecca.
We just talked about it. May 2nd.
May 2nd, the pickleball courts proposed for Bushmaster Park will be at City Council. I would anticipate, I would have a presentation. I would anticipate a healthy conversation with City Council. We did, just for everyone's information, in mid-March, sent out a postcard mailer to the 78 residences that surround the park. And any comments that are coming back, there was a QR code and there is a web link for those residents to go to, and then they have my contact information. So anyone that has contacted, they're immediately responded to as usual, and then full transparency that obviously their comments will be shared with City Council that evening, whether if in favor or disfavor of the pickleball courts proposed there at that location.
Time the city council that went to 3.
They do begin at 3 p.m. This item is on routine, so I would anticipate would go on fairly early, which is good. It won't be a 10 p.m.er kind of thing.
Dang it.
Fingers crossed. I know.
Crossed, Amy.
Yeah, I probably did. But you can also.
Meetings can last till 10 p.m.
We've been there till midnight.
We've been there, yeah, absolutely. But you can also obviously attend virtually if you'd like, as a member of the public or interested individual. I do think it will be a healthy conversation.
Always watch
I always watch it the next day. Yep, so it should be a fun one.
Excellent. Any other updates?
The Buffalo Park ADA.
For the Buffalo Park grant funded project. So we do have a contractor up there right now at Buffalo Park working on the flat work portion and the 4 parking stall portion of that. With the snow season that we just went over, and now peeling into getting our fields and our irrigation energized, we knew park staff could not perform that task in-house. So, and for the grant provisions, we could use a subcontractor, and we had funding for it. So that should wrap up here. The message I received on Friday was they're 25% done with the scope of that project. So the internal goal is to get that completed by the end of May. And then we want to be out of there and have this project done and open to the public and perform some type of grand opening. So that could be something we could put together if we have any interested commissioners to attend. I bet sometime in June, do a grand opening of the trail reconstruction, the 6 accessible universal workstations, and a couple new parking spaces and some walkway.
I saw new equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
Right.
I don't know how to use it yet. You don't have the sign.
Yep, we did discuss that, yeah. So I may actually attend the commission on inclusive and adaptive living and see if there'd be any individuals that would be welcome to do a video and do like a demonstration on how to use the equipment, because there is not one available with the manufacturer. I think that'd be pretty neat to do.
Yeah.
Or if anybody wants to do it.
Things you can scan.
Exactly, and then it could bring up the video on how to use it. That's our idea.
There should be QR codes on.
On everything. I heard Commissioner Stackhouse wants to volunteer to do the video. Is that
I
right?
don't think anyone wants to watch the exercise. I'm just gonna throw that.
But no, great question on that for a 2 from and all on that one.
All right, let me move my cat. Any other informational items before we talk about next month's agenda? Can't believe next month's gonna be May. It's crazy. I do want, I let Rebecca know earlier that I am not going to seek another term. My term ends in August, and I just wanted to let everybody else here know as well. I will continue out serving this term, and I've really enjoyed my time, and I just I think with the things going on, I should step away for a little bit and hope to come back another time. But yeah, I will still be here through the end of my term.
Ricky, does that mean I have to delete your cell phone number?
Please do. I was hoping you would have done that already. Yeah, I blocked you already, so.
Hey, we're officially broken up, and I believe it's in the minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna unheart that. So for the next agenda, I think we should consider what was presented to us earlier in terms of discussion. At least I'm kind of curious on, one of the things that was requested was a sign, and I'm kind of curious about park signage and if that is even in our scope as a Parks and Rec department. Is that streets? Is there collaboration there? Or I don't know if that's a reasonable solution or not, but I don't know. I was curious if other commissioners wanted to see something like that on a future agenda, either next month or the following, on kind of something to talk about what was presented to us by the public today.
Right. Could be a future item. I do know in the roadway and right of way, there would be very strict guidelines regarding signage that can occur, but then within park boundaries, something else.
So that's more of a streets discussion.
That it would be a streets or potential transportation discussion.
Yeah, that was my initial thought too, is where it was being proposed was not inside of the park. So it was likely not something that the department would be looking to facilitate. But yeah, I don't know if we have we have the contact information for those public to kind of point them in a different direction for that particular suggestion. How about anything on, I know we done our prioritization. I remember seeing second sheet advice at J Lively when I worked at J Lively gobs of years ago. That was talked about. I hear what they're saying, and I worked really late nights at the ice rink because of trying to jam in all of those people. But I don't know, we have considered our projects as a commission, and I don't know if it's worth discussing further, but just that was presented to us today. Do we want to have another discussion, a further discussion, see if that ranks anywhere in our future project priorities?
We've discussed that, so I don't think it's anywhere in our near-term future.
Well, and it looks like what we do have on the agenda for next month is review and discussion of fees and fee policy, which is great. I know that's something I've kind of been talking about as well. And so I look forward to that discussion. Are there other things that commissioners or staff would like to see on that agenda?
So question, was there more commissioners that wanted to have a conversation about park signage? Because if we have at least 4 of you interested in that, then we could do some research on it and then put together a very quick presentation based on what we find next month. But if there's not, then staff won't spend time on that.
I wouldn't mind hearing a discussion, at least, what the process would be for people, whether or not that even will make a difference. Simple studies, but adding signs of that nature would slow down traffic, or just kind of spinning wheels. What other measures? With the signs, I know with snowplow operation, we don't do speed humps like we do. Drainage ditches. I mean, I actually been dealing with this
on our property, next to our property, on Cherry Street. It was suggested to me by, my dad was in public works for 42 years. He built streets for a living. And when I couldn't get a stop sign put in, one thing that does solve two problems is, when you have, dips in the road, like there, I think there's one on like Benito.
There's one on North
Yeah.
Fork Road in front of Clark Homes.
Yeah, I know those. Alternatively to signs, if your goal is just to slow down traffic. Considering, surface drainage channels, that slows people down, especially when you put an extra couple inches in there, that'll take your fender off if you're not careful, so.
Commissioner Martin, your hand is up.
I don't know if there was enough commissioners, I would be willing to find out a little bit more. I do know that, we talked about signage for foot trails in the past, and I would love an update about how those are going. But regarding normal signage, I don't know what we could do about that. And while I like the idea of the dips, I don't think that's in our purview. So, and I couldn't really hear what else was said, but at that, I would be interested in finding out about that. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
I guess
we
something I
need
would say related to the signage is, you guys have a lot of neighborhood parks, you have areas by Fox, is it, what is being requested? Is it being facilitated in other pros areas, or would it be abnormal, or, or do we have are there reports of similar kind of issues in other city parks? But again, if I'm not gonna, if there's not enough momentum on that one, I'm okay not having the staff do all that legwork and discussion for the future meeting. And go ahead, Amy, I talked over you, sorry.
Well, I think we need to differentiate between roadway right-of-way and park grounds. They're two completely different areas of oversight. So we do need to differentiate on that. And I think what Rebecca was, I believe the comment that was provided by the member of the public it sounded like was signage for within the right-of-way or roadway. So if there are 4 or more commissioners interested in pursuing that, we would need to know that, not for park grounds.
I'm not seeing it. I think Amy and I are probably thinking of some directions that we could send that citizen, and we could reach out to them directly with that recommendation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ricky, I didn't understand where that conversation was going, because
Well, it's not intended to be a conversation right now. I just want to know if there are 4 commissioners that want us to bring back an agenda item about signage around Thorpe Park based on that public participation item. That's what we need to know.
I felt like that was more of a roadway thing, like you said. I guess the way she's looking at it is they're there because of the park, but the signage and the roadway is like a different department, right?
Yeah.
Plus follows.
I think we
strict
can
guidelines.
refer to what you said, the road, whatever that other one's called, public works.
Should be the Transportation Commission where that conversation can start.
Yeah, tell them to talk to Sam.
Nope, that would be in our engineering division, right?
It is, yeah, with transportation engineering.
Okay. So then what I'm hearing is we will talk about fees, which that's already scheduled. And the ice rink request, I didn't see support for that to get on an agenda either. Okay. So we'll talk about these.
Which could be a hefty conversation, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that's gonna be our main conversation, because as you will see, we will actually send out our fee schedule more than just a few days in advance. Corinne, if you could make a note to remember to send out our fee schedule. It's many, many pages long, and you guys are gonna have a fun time looking through it.
Can I speak to the ice thing? The ice thing, I don't know if you can let him know this, I'm just rolling with that here. That is actually a pretty consistent topic, on the county level. The county, I think, Commissioner Conway can speak to this a little bit. The county, I believe, tried to get some kind of hockey tournament up here, this last year, and I don't know that it all worked out. But I don't know if he might have more luck rather than coming to the city to maybe go to, you could even direct him to the Friends and come on that thing, or somebody in the county, because that is the ice rink is a persistent discussion for Fort Tile, where they might actually end up having more room for what he is, I think, looking for in terms of a tournament hockey.
Cool. Well, Commissioner Martin, sorry, go ahead.
Maybe I know that the fee agenda is supposed to be on the next meeting in May. Could we possibly limit the scope of that meeting to be about like certain sections of the fee schedule and work them in bits at a time versus the whole entire fee schedule all at once?
I think you need to, at least at the first meeting, see it as a whole and how they relate to each other.
Okay.
More staff presentation and discussion can come as the commission wants to see it come later.
And then break it into subsets of interest.
If that's what the commission would like to do, but I think I think we need to present it, especially in the first meeting, so that you understand the relationships.
Okay. I think that's a great idea, like, get a presentation of the whole entire of it, but I think for simplicity for, for our own selves, if we could look at subsets of it at a time, that way we can kind of all keep on the same page versus flipping back and forth between individual things that may be later in the packet versus in the beginning of the packet. If we are serious about actually talking about this subject.
Thank you, Commissioner Martin. Well then, sounds like next meeting will be a very focused on an important topic, the fees, and yeah, there are many of them across special events and ramadas and programs and all the drop-in and all the things you guys do at the pros team. So I do think it'll be a great discussion and an in-depth look. And I hope we can get to even talking about that philosophy or fee cost recovery type concept. But I think it's going to be a very great meeting and in-depth look. So it's good to probably lighten the agenda or keep the agenda light for that meeting. Well then, if there's no other comments, discussions, I think we're ready to skedaddle on out of here. Last call for anybody going once, going twice. Right on. I hope you all have an awesome rest of your Monday, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.